Here we go. Hey, hi everybody. How you doing? It's Todd Caputo here with Todd Caputo Consulting, and I've got a couple gentlemen here with this product that we talked about. I don't know, 3, 4 months ago, guys. I think it was
About
right.
that, yeah.
And I know you've gained a lot of traction over the last few months here, and made some pretty good enhancements to this product as well. Which I'll be honest with you, I don't even know what they are, and I kind of like to do this the best way is just seeing it fresh, right? So I can ask questions and really just kind of deep dive into here from the perspectives of a dealer. Like, what would a dealer ask if they had an interest in this product? And just so everybody understands, I have no financial interest in this whatsoever. There's no commissions for me, nothing. Scott and I are buddies, right? We met. Where did we meet, you and I, initially? Was it Digital Dealer, or was it
Yeah, it
at
was Digital Dealer.
Sony?
Yeah, Digital Dealer was, about 3 years ago, and then we saw
About
again.
3 years ago, right? And then we've kind of kept in touch ever since. And Scott seems to have a nose to end up in a place where there's a really, really, really good product that benefits dealers. And that's why I wanted to talk to him and Justin today about this product that they've got. So why don't you guys introduce yourself to the audience first, and then let's get rolling here with a demo.
Yeah, perfect. So my name is Scott Trainer. I'm the director of the automotive division here at Motives. Our solution for automotive is Check My Driver. Many of you guys know me. For those who don't, I came from the retail world. From 19 years old, I was selling Toyotas, finished managing Canada's largest Mercedes-Benz dealer, and now I'm down in the United States on the dealer partner side, and proud to be leading this solution and changing the game.
Awesome. Yeah. And hey, everyone, Justin Silver here. I am the co-founder and chief operating officer here at Motives. My background is a little different than Scott's in that I come from the insurance industry, although within insurance, I did spend a lot of time in auto through auto insurance. And with Check My Driver, we're kind of bridging the chasm between what is fundamentally an insurance problem, but lives ultimately in the dealership and in their interactions with their customers and insurance companies. So super excited to be here and to share more about what we're doing with Check My Driver.
Beautiful. Well, it's good to have you guys here. So who's going to pull up the deck and let's go through this?
Yeah, I will pull up the deck. So
Okay.
I can hit present here.
Yeah.
1 second. And just hit that little present button and share screen. It's easiest with 2 monitors. And let's do this screen here. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
You will be in 2 seconds here.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Okay. All right. So I know some of you may have not seen this before, but so we wanted to kind of start from the beginning here. So Check My Driver, its main proposition originated from an insurance verification problem statement. And insurance verification occurs all throughout automotive, and more as we've been working with our customers and through the industry, we're recognizing where that there are so many different places where insurance verification can exist. So all the way from top of the funnel to from a sales process standpoint, and all the way to the back from a service standpoint from a loaner or a rental car. And so one of the big updates that we've done as we've been looking at how do we remove friction, both from the consumer and for the dealers, we have made some enhancements to the product, which we'll talk about. But ultimately, the process is as easy as 1, 2, 3 to do insurance verification for your customers. It's basically select your insurance company, enter your credentials, click a button, and off the results go to the dealer so that they can confirm whether you have both active and adequate insurance coverage in the moment relevant to what they're doing. So you may have different requirements for a test drive or for a lease or a finance or a cash purchase, or in order for someone to take a loaner or a rental. And so
Justin, like, so by department, right? For those in the audience that are like, wait a minute, where in the service department would I need this, or where in sales? So you mentioned in service. If I'm a service advisor, service manager, service director, and I've got loaner cars, which pretty much every dealership does, or they have their own separate rental car agency or
Yeah.
company at the store that is still owned by the dealer or dealer group, they're going to be quote unquote renting a car or loaning a car to a customer, and we don't give a customer a car without insurance. This serves that purpose, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Or a body shop.
Yeah. Anytime someone would ask a customer to present their insurance card, this fits. And the big driver that we talked about last time, that really kind of started driving awareness in the dealership world, was the FTC requirement that came out a while back around being able to safeguard customer information. And so the process end to end is completely and digitally secured and takes all the paper out of the mix, the photocopies, the scans. It takes the snapping a photo on a phone and having that information sitting within the sales team's cell phones. Each one of those violations in each instance is over $56,000 of an FTC fine. And so basically, to your question, anywhere that you would have historically said, show me your ID card, that's where we exist.
Yeah, and I can tell you what, like from a service advisor standpoint, or even someone working at the counter, there's certain times of the day where it's real busy, right? Where you've got a lot of people that are going into cars. So I would think that this probably speeds up that process and makes it more efficient. Is that kind of the why you created this?
Yeah, so it's the efficiency game, absolutely. But also, there's a lot of tribal knowledge that has to sit with the dealer staff and personnel in order to understand whether or not what is being presented actually meets the requirement and intent behind asking. So in service, for example, we talked to a dealer recently that had a loss where someone presented a commercial auto insurance ID card, and commercial auto didn't have coverage for what's called non-owned auto, which would be a loan or a rental.
Yeah.
And an accident happened and they were not covered. And so those things have other consequences back to the dealer, where the dealer said, well, I have insurance. But as we all know, insurance premiums are on the rise. And using your insurance as a reason to not do things well is not an excuse, and ultimately will have financial consequences, because your premiums will go up, insurance companies could drop you or non-renew, or worse, not pay the claim, quite frankly, should one arise. And so the solution not only helps the security and the friction or the speed of those process, but also actually does the analysis of the insurance information and basically gives you a disposition: red, green, yellow. You good? You not? What's wrong? And then allows you to effectively make a decision.
And I would think too, like if I'm going to renew my garage liability at the end of the year, which is coming up for a lot of dealers,
Yep.
And you can tell a dealer that you have a product like this, or excuse me, if a dealer can tell an insurance company that they have a product like this, I would think that it potentially could, I don't want to say reduce their rates, but maybe stop their rates from going up, or at least let the insurance company know that they've got processes and software in place to protect against this kind of thing.
Absolutely. So spot on. I mean, that's kind of, it's one of those, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's one of those interesting things that, it hasn't, it's like the FTC are they levying the fines yet? Are they cracking down? Not yet, but will they? Probably. And at some point they may make some examples. They, certainly data breaches. We've definitely all heard about, some of the cyber attacks and data breaches. They're real. And as they start coming, these protections are being put in place for a reason. Same thing's happening in insurance. There's a trend where insurance companies are starting to recognize that dealers aren't following the practice. Maybe, at the desk, they're presenting an ID card, but they're not calling the insurance company. The ID card doesn't mean you have insurance. It means at some point you did have insurance. And so if you're not calling, you didn't really verify. And so the document's not enough. And so what's happening is ultimately those insurance companies are now becoming aware. And that's where our insurance background really helps us. We're working with the insurance industry to bring awareness that there now is a method and a process to be able to do this, such that the dealers need to and should be actually doing this in a new way. And the insurance companies, as they're gaining awareness, are saying, why would I want to pay a claim if you didn't even do your minimum part, which is to verify, which is a requirement they have on the dealers. And so we're working all the way around to ultimately do this, not to cause it to be a pain in the butt to the dealers, but ultimately to protect their assets, right? And that's why they have insurance, and they want to make sure that they get paid. And the insurance companies want to pay for situations where they should pay, but they don't want to pay for situations where people are, could have taken some safeguards or what others call risk management approaches. It's like putting the wet floor sign out, after you mop, right? If you didn't put it out and someone slips and falls, insurance company is going to say they don't want to pay, right? So it's a similar kind of thought process behind what we're doing here.
Makes sense completely.
Yeah. So
right,
Todd, there's one thing that I did want to hit on that you mentioned before about the friction, and that's what you see on that first step of this process. So think about an appointment that you make to come into a dealer, or you arrive and you didn't make an appointment and you just show up on the lot, or you show up in service. This QR code that you're seeing there and the links that we've created in the front end of the process is part of our new enhancements. And the reason we did that is, and we are working with companies like Bowtie and others from an outsourced BDC standpoint, and some of our dealer customers to implement this QR code into communications for people before they arrive. Hey, before you arrive, did you know you could save time and safeguard your information by just simply scanning this QR code? Scan this QR code and make sure that we know who you are and we can validate that. And make sure that your insurance information is accurate rather than waiting, with your sales rep calling the insurance company or in the F&I box or the service rep at the counter.
Exactly. So if I got a service appointment set for 2 o'clock on a Thursday, I'm going to get an email or a text message with a link to a QR code. I'm going to scan the QR code, go through this process, which you're going to explain to us.
Yeah.
So when I show up at the dealership, whether it's for to get a loaner car for service or I'm coming in for a test drive on a car, this speeds up time, and time is everything, especially at certain times of the day at a car dealership when it's busy, and also ensures processes it's followed every single way. It's done the same way every single time.
Absolutely. And, from, again, different dealers are at different stages of the evolution, but as you try to do more and more online before you come, or an e-retailing scenario where you're trying to close those deals online and get the customer to just come in and do as little as possible so they can take their keys and go, this really helps. If there are issues with insurance that need to be rectified, that they're not having to sit in the dealership and associating that issue with your dealership process. That is
totally
big.
Agree.
It's huge. I mean, we keep asking everyone, what's left once they buy online and then they come in? And besides signing the paperwork, the number one answer we get from people is handling the insurance situation. That all can be taken care of in advance.
Makes sense to me completely.
So before we get into the demonstration, there's one other piece of information that I wanted to share with you here, and that is, let me just click here, is that from the last time that we spoke with everyone, for people who have watched, we've done a couple other things. Okay, one, we've realized that the insurance ID card is almost always asked for at the same time or similar, in nature to the driver's license. So it's like, I call it like peanut butter and jelly, right? Driver's license and insurance, please. In the front of the house in sales, insurance is sometimes not asked for at the same time today because of the friction and the time that it takes to actually go through the verification. But if it can be done simply and securely and, remove all the work from the dealership, then they can come back together in those places where they've been separated, right?
And I'll tell you another thing too. In a lot of cases, like I can remember from back in the days when I was a dealer, and I used to sell a lot of cars to people, right? Like I sold cars to people on the floor if I had to. A lot of times, people don't have their insurance card.
Yeah,
they don't know who's my insurance company. I don't even remember. I don't know where the card is. They don't have the insurance card. They don't have the registration. they just sometimes they don't. I mean, they know the insurance company is typically, but they don't have the policy number, and that all takes time. So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, but that's
Yeah.
you're right.
So we've incorporated, and you'll see this in the demo, we've incorporated into the product the ID capture, so you can simply, safely, and securely capture the driver's license, make sure that it is authentic first and foremost. They are who they say they are. And second, that you can eliminate fraud through synthetic fraud checks through the process. So we've combined those things together. And then when you take that combined with the insurance verification and the additional fraud checks that come along with the fact that insurance companies have run other things like MVR reports, and they know if your license is, all kinds of things that are in addition to checks that are normally just checked with the ID checking process. Together, we get an increased synthetic fraud detection.
That's a great point, especially when it comes to loaner cars in a lot of cases. You don't want to be loaning a car to somebody who's got a suspended license.
Yeah, and generally the insurance company, if their license is suspended, may exclude them as a driver. Our system will detect excluded drivers and compare the person that's coming in for the rental to the policy and look to see if they're excluded in that moment.
No one at a dealership is going to check that either. I wouldn't think they're not going to look unless they have something like this. There's no way they would.
Yeah,
so that makes a lot of sense.
And then the other thing that we've done is in talking with our dealers, we've been realizing that the data we're capturing to actually do the coverage analysis is giving us a lot of information that is highly valuable in the dealer world. So as we talk about, offering our solution, and dealerships, they don't want to spend money or spend money differently and going through all that process. And what we've decided to do is figure out, how do we derive and drive more value to the dealership by virtue of just doing the process without charging necessarily any more money. And so some of the things, that's where you see on this slide what's called driver insights. So Scott, I don't know if you want to take a quick moment, but Scott's really been uncovering and working with our dealers on how we can unlock that value.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So driver's insights was obviously something that I held close to my heart coming from the retail world. Is nowadays the data is king. I think we all know that, whether it comes time to sales, service, acquisition, the more we can get in real-time data, the more we can make actionable decisions. So by implementing this, as Justin said, in the process and making it part of the process, we're pulling all this additional information about the guest's full profile and their household. So certain dealers are now implementing this in their digital retail platform. Some of them are using it in the lead enhancement. So making it an optional field for the customer to verify their insurance while they are submitting a lead to the dealers. Others are doing it, the process in the store. And what that's bringing forward as information is obviously the guest's information, their first, last name, the VIN, the year, make, model of their vehicle, as well as their whole household profile. Without having to ask them all that information, you now have that up front. You can now value their trade-in different, you can work a deal different, or you can use this data in terms of marketing. I know acquisition's a big thing right now in the market, and how do we acquire more vehicles private party instead of going to the auctions? Well, now if you're able to know the vehicles in there, you can now target that customer. For example, I have a Toyota. I service it at the group locally. They obviously know what I'm driving. But that group also owns a Honda store, but my wife did not purchase it there and does not service it there. They would not have a way of knowing she has that. So by this Toyota store performing this action, when they give me a loaner or a rental, when I go for service, they now know that my wife has a Honda now. They could target her for either conquest sales, for loyalty for their Honda store, or to bring her in for service at their Honda store. So this actionable data can be used in many different aspects through strategy.
Is it soft pulling or no?
So the way that the information, so think about this, right? The difference between a verification at time of sale, right? In the, you've already kind of desked a deal and you're going and doing insurance. That's kind of one moment. But what we're seeing in the sales process is the earlier you can do this, right? On appointments coming in, think of it like a soft pull. I mean, doing it at test drive is kind of that way because you just need to know really, do they have an active policy? You don't really care much about the scenario as much. It would be good to know because if I'm going to go do a full a lease or a finance, and their current vehicle only has liability and not comp and collision, you're going to know that they need. That's kind of the baseline. Like you're going to get to size up and shape and score your deal differently, and how long it's going to take to close, and what things need to be done early. But by doing it early is like a soft pull. It's the same kind of concept as a soft pull, but from an insurance perspective.
Well, the more data that the desk knows about the deal that's getting worked, the better.
Yep.
So,
Correct.
And one of the areas where a lot of dealers, have opportunity, I think, is when people get qualified, right? When they walk in the door to get qualified, or even when they fill out a form online, qualifying customers is to the benefit of the dealer and the people working deals, but it's also to the benefit of a customer too at the end of the day, right? Because if the better you can qualify them, the more efficient you can make the sales process when they're at the dealership, just less friction and save people time, which is really at the end of the day what consumers want. People
It's
don't
also
like hang.
yeah. Sorry, it's
People
already
don't-
also facilitating deals where sometimes different OEMs have different. We saw it in a scenario recently where an OEM had a Conquest Cash if there was another brand in that household.
That's a good point.
So by knowing this ahead of time, you're able to structure that deal differently. That customer might not have brought to light that they had this vehicle. The salesperson might not have asked. However, now you're able to use this data to structure your deal and hopefully make it.
So what data specifically does Driver Insights provide, and how does it provide it? Does it show up on a dashboard once somebody scans a QR code? How does it work?
Yeah, so great question. So a couple things. One, what's included in there is all drivers in the household and their profile. So their name, their date of birth, and some other profiles about them, generally about the insured, whether they're married or single, things like that. On the from a vehicle standpoint, it's all the vehicles that are listed in that location or any other garage that's covered under that policy, for that matter. The year, make, model, VIN, the coverages of those vehicles, and not for nothing, the current premium. So when you're thinking about structuring your deal, you're also knowing what they're paying for their insurance, because as we all know,
wow, that's great.
The total cost to the consumer around the decision is the car payment and the insurance payment equal what I got to outlay. And so now you bring that all forward. And so the next question you asked is, how are we surfacing that? Well, part of our goal is to begin to surface that and work with the CRMs and the DMS system providers to be able to bring that all the way through to the systems they work in today. However, many of them don't have the ability to take that data in and weaponize it in the way that we're talking about in these use cases. So what we're doing is bringing that information, to your point, in the dashboard inside the Motives application, inside Check My Driver, to bring that information up so they do the verification, they can see it's active, it's adequate, and surface the driver. There's a screen called Driver's Insights that basically gives them that information, and we're starting to layer the intelligence on top of the data. So today you can see the information. Tomorrow it will start to give you signals or indicators associated with the opportunities that this information derives.
So will it push in this consumer information? You will or will not push it into CRM?
It can. We haven't done that yet. We're working on with different providers to push that into the CRM. But today the data does go back into some DMS systems.
Yeah,
that was my next question with DMS.
New concept. It was a completely new concept for them. They did not have fields built. Now they've all become excited with what we brought forward, so they're building it to adopt it.
The DMSs, though, most of the DMSs, they've got these fields for policy numbers and deductibles, right? And that's just stuff that's got to get keyed in. So, like from an efficiency standpoint, whoever's building the deal out, if this information can push directly into DMS, that's just less keystrokes for people. It's going to save people a little bit of time. Plus, you're not going to get mistakes, right? You're not going to get somebody, keying in a B when there should have been an N because they didn't key it in properly in the keyboard.
So that is the scope, and we'll talk about it in the demo a little bit more. But at a high level, the integration today, from a DMS standpoint, looks like the following. It's figuring out the best method to incorporate the origination into the dealer management system. So whether it's clicking the button and just launching the QR code or link, or it's populating the request with information so the consumer doesn't have to add it. Different systems have different viewpoints or how they want to do it. On the backside, two things come out the back for integration. One is the information to populate the insurance info screen within their DMS system. So who's the insurance company, what's the coverages on the policy, or whatever kind of basic information, the lien holder, things like that. The other piece is for the digital deal jacket, and I will show in the demo what we drop in, which is the full provenance and disposition from Check My Driver, so that someone doesn't technically have to go log into the Check My Driver dashboard from a F&I perspective. They could just go right to the deal jacket and look at the information right within their dealer management system.
Oh, cool. Perfect. Okay.
So I think that's probably as good a tee up to the demo. And then there's one other piece that we'll come back to down at the bottom, so don't let me forget, and it's this new feature that's coming out later next year.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and pull this up. Can you see this here?
Yep.
All right. So we talked about the QR code. Whether you arrive at the dealership, it's sitting on the door as you walk in, or it's a link or a QR code sitting in a text or an email coming in through a notification. The consumer just has to scan the QR code, click the proper consent so that we can communicate compliantly over text message with them. And now they're in this generally on their phone, but it's also works right on their desktop from their home. If we know why they're coming in, you would not need to ask them, why are you here? But in a scenario where they walked up and it was a QR code sitting on the front door, you might want to ask them, hey, what are you here for today? In this case, let's just go, because we talked a little bit about the loan or rental. If I'm in and it's a rental desk scenario, right, I would scan the QR code. It would know I'm at the loan or rental. And so all they would have to do is enter this information, their email or phone number. And again, if it was originated from their fleet management software or from their rental system, we pre-populate when it's integrated. But from a standalone perspective, you're seeing what happens because it can operate standalone, and people can take advantage of this capability today while integrations are underway. So first thing that comes in, hey, can I get your driver's license, please? Well, digitally, securely, you capture the front and back through an upload or through the camera. Take the front and back, and it's going to go ahead and authenticate that driver's license as real and render a disposition. It flashed quickly. You'll see it at the end. We don't want to burden the consumer or the customer with if there's nothing wrong, right? Just we flashed it up, everything passed, it goes through. The next thing is, do you have insurance? Yes, I do. Great. Who's your insurance company? It's State Farm. Go ahead and click verify. Enter your username, enter your password, hit verify, and it's going to go and authorize, verify, and it's going to send the results right back.
All right, so this is your user ID and password for your insurance account.
Exactly.
What if you don't know what it is? Let's assume I'm someone who's not very technologically savvy and I have no idea what the hell it is.
Yep.
Which happens a lot.
Yep. So if they get to the screen and you don't know what it is, you can reset your password. If you've never, and it takes you right to each insurance company's place on their site where you could go and get your password reset. And if you say, hey, I've never registered my account before, they can click on the register account button and it will take them right to the customer registration so that they can go ahead. Okay.
So then, how many people, right? You guys, how many dealers you have using this right now?
We have, as a private company, we're not sharing our total customer count, but it, very significant at this point.
I mean, it's getting used, right? At the end of the day,
oh,
regardless.
Yeah. We are in production.
So what I'm saying is how often, the reason why I'm asking this question is there's people that just know the stuff and people that don't. I'll give you an example. My mother and father, right? My mom is in her 70s, my dad's in his early 80s. He's a car dealer, but still,
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you, he doesn't know how to sign into State Farm or anything else, right?
Yeah.
And if he's coming in to get a car, so there's going to be certain people that don't. Out of if 10 people walk in to get a loaner, do you have data that shows how many people know this information and that don't, or no?
Yeah, I mean, in general, if they don't know it, they're able to get it. We're seeing, upwards of 90% do. So you do have a community that might not know it, but what they can do is do or manual verification. And what this will do is allow them to upload more traditionally their front and back, and
All
then
right, so this overcomes that problem.
yep, our team, and when they go this road, now they're not entering usernames and passwords. The dealer staffs are generally aware of what's going on and can help the senior citizen just, snap
That's
it.
super
So,
smart.
yeah, so this can just go and upload it, and then what that does will go ahead and send it off to our team that'll actually call the insurance company and render a disposition. So it is
All right,
important.
so it's not reading it. It's not actually
It
reading
is.
the
It
data.
does read it. It extracts the data. It pulls it off, but
Yeah.
it does not mean that it's enforced. That
Yeah, exactly.
person could have not paid their bill, or so it depends on the scenario. But ultimately, they go ahead and they hit upload, and our support team will go ahead and make the quick call and verify and update the system.
So, and I would think, right, if you're trying to think about how to make this more efficient before somebody walks in to the dealership, if they've made an appointment already for a loaner or they've scheduled a test drive or whatever, prior to them coming, part of the messaging could be either in a text message or an email. Make sure you know what your user ID and your password is for your insurance company.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And what we found, and this was something that we hadn't necessarily expected, but what we found is, especially when people are using their phone. Again, you have some edge cases, and certainly the senior population may be the biggest cohort to this. But in general, even those that are technologically challenged at times, now are getting their deck page and or their ID cards through their customer portals, through self-service. And so if they've done it once on their phone, your iPhone or your Android, generally save the password. And so when they
Yep.
come in, what we're finding is people are actually, they don't even need to know it. They're just clicking because it was saved and they're able to get through. So it's
Gotcha.
actually greater. And so the answer to the question is a funny one, because how many people don't know it? A lot of people don't know it. And we had this, happen. We're selling a dealer, and the dealer's like, I don't know my username and password. Like, scan the QR code. We flashed it on the screen. He scanned it. He went to go through the process, and he's like, I don't know my username and password, except his phone popped it up. He clicked it and went through. He's like, oh, I still don't know it, but I got through. So it's one of those things that so that's one factor, and the other one that's driving even those numbers to come down is that ID cards from law enforcement standpoint are going digital, right? An ID card in your glove box doesn't mean for law enforcement that you have insurance.
Yeah, and just to expand on what you said, sending out a message that the customer should, hey, have your password ready and your username. Well, we're actually sending them the link that they can verify it before. So we're not saying, hey, prepare your username and password.
Do it now.
The verification's already done before they show up at the store.
Gotcha.
And then
Okay.
ultimately you get to this dashboard, and this is where they can see all the verifications and whatnot. And then ultimately, if we come into the verification, all the results are here. Should they want to see it or need to go back for audit purposes, including all the checks that were done, including the specific coverage amounts if the situation required. I know my dealership says if the car is older than 2018, we require to make sure you have 100, 300 minimum liability limits that on a rental, especially in some of the brands like BMW, Mercedes, things like that, where the value of the loaner can be great. And so they want to
as a dealer, when you're doing, if they choose to sign up and use your product, they set up this stuff. If it doesn't meet the requirements, it turns either yellow or red.
Yes, it turns yellow or red. And so what ultimately you get is, just to show you back what you see and gets dropped in the dealer management system is the traffic lights right at the top. Very simple: active, adequate, passed, license status real, and the identifraud, it's passed or it has a warning. And then, so if they're in the dashboard, they can see all this. But if they're working in their DMS, right? You come in, oh, the verification, here's the detail. I can see what's going on. It's active. And if it was yellow, I want to come to the details. I would come in and I could see exactly what goes on. And then what we're doing now, right now, is to enhance these bubbles with a hover over that will tell you exactly if it's a warning. And in this case, it's not a warning, but will tell you exactly what's wrong. So hang on a second, the VIN doesn't match, or the coverage. Hey, you're required to have this, and you only have that. So we're starting to put English language behind the dispositions of inadequacies or issues that arise.
Makes sense to me.
Okay? And then ultimately, I think I mentioned before, you see for the license, here's the results back. They flashed quickly in the screen, but the dealer gets, passed, and the verification of the information. Okay, so that's what comes up, but also what returns back is all the documents. So I'll show you. I'm going to flip back to the environment here in the system and show you that they all exist. The policy document is there. We know in the future, folks will go away. They won't need to have it with our system. But if they want it, and for what I call provenance, right, proof, the actual policy document came back. So the ID cards, which means that the customer didn't have to send this to you or get it. It was given to you by the insurance company through us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it all gets shared, all of that detailed information. Okay,
makes sense completely.
So the this one, Scott.
Yep.
So the other thing here that we talked about was the driver insights, and so you can start to see us expose the driver insights associated with that information. And we have a ton more data that we're working to start to expose, but here's all the vehicles in the household, their VIN, their year, make, model, trim, the drivers, their age, so forth and so on. If they have,
and you're getting this because you got access to their insurance portal.
Exactly. And while your eyes might glaze over if you were to click this button, just for downloading purposes, if someone wanted it, or for, there's an API call for DMSs and CRMs to get it. But ultimately what it comes up is all the data that's behind it that can be dropped right into the system for integration. All the data, not just what's going up on this screen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'd like to, unless there's any other questions, what I'd like to come back to is this insurance rate notifications, what's coming in the roadmap.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, we talked about insurance verification is the center of what we do. It's the foundation and central pillar. But we got peanut butter and jelly with the driver's license. We've got additional value through driver's insights to help dealership operations and marketing efforts to drive additional revenue and income. But we also have customer loyalty and customer stickiness. And so dealers who care about their customers are always looking for ways to build connections with them, trust, value, and for them to keep coming back. So what we're coming out with in late Q1 is what we're calling insurance rate notifications. We know who the insurance company is for each customer that comes in. We know who their insurance is with, and we know what they're paying. And what we're able to do is actually monitor the rate filings from the insurance companies. They have to do that well in advance of it ever being affected by, you feeling the effect of it in your policy. We know where you live and where the zip code is. And so we're able to monitor those filings and say you have Geico, and we know next March Geico is going to hit your policy or people in your demographic area with a rate increase of say 10, 15%, 20%.
Which has been pretty common the last 12 to 24 months.
Wouldn't you want to know the second that filing went in? And by the way, when it's going to take effect. So if you right now could go ahead and buy, even with the same insurance company, and re-up in January or February before March with Geico for another 6 months, you could do that, and then you could save yourself that time on that premium, or you could go look for another insurance company that would give you better rates. So what does that mean for the dealer? I'm looking out for you, right? I understand that your payment is the sum of these parts, and I've got this piece that I'm going to continue to look out for your on your best interest and notify you if there's something coming down the pike that could impact you and drive you to give you the signal that you could go ahead and potentially save by exploring insurance options.
So isn't there a couple different vendors right now that allow a dealer to sell insurance, automobile insurance in the dealership and shop around and shop the markets? I think one of them is called Poly.
Yeah,
You ever heard of
so yeah,
Poly?
yes.
Wouldn't some integration with Poly or something like that make some kind of sense here?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, we have partners that's not Poly. We have partners on the backside of this that provide marketplaces for people to go and procure that insurance. But at the end of the day, customers have choice, whether it's a
Yeah.
relationship that the dealer has existing with someone or the person's current insurance provider. It could be their State Farm agent, it could be, their Allstate agent, it could be an independent agent. At the end of the day, our intention behind this is to provide value to the customer and to let the dealer get the credit for that value, right? And ultimately, where the customer goes, they have choice. So we don't want to
Yeah.
compete with our dealers' relationships, any ancillary incomes that they may get through those relationships. That's not our business. Our business is verification and then exposing, as a result, what can I weaponize the dealership with by not just by virtue of getting them to do this process early and often where it makes sense for them. Because, if you think about top of the funnel on loaners, a lot of people are not verifying insurance at loaners, but they should. And they recognize maybe that it's a good idea, and some do. But how do we drive enough value? Well, if we can give you the insights by doing it, the insights alone justify the offset of the cost that they might push back on for doing it. Say, I don't want to do it. But if you drive enough value, they keep saying, well, why should I do it? Why should I do it? Well, listen, does the value outweigh the perception of change or the angst of change or the friction that they might perceive otherwise? Well, when you start layering these things in, we now, by the way, set ourselves completely apart from anybody else in the space that might be purporting to be an insurance verification vendor.
Makes sense to me. I was just thinking too, right, from a vehicle acquisition standpoint in the service lane, um, even if the customer doesn't want to sell or trade the car that's in the lane that day, but now that you have access to the information to other cars they own in the household, I would think this information that you provide here, because you have access to their insurance portal, would be valuable to the acquisition department in a dealership.
Absolutely. Two big things that we're hearing from the service lane. How do you turn a service appointment into a new sales opportunity, to effectively a feed into the inventory of acquisition of vehicles, right? And then also either second bite at the apple or opportunities to pitch F&I products, to customers that maybe didn't come through and even purchase. If someone's coming in, they didn't buy a car from me, but they don't have a service contract or anything like that. It's a great time not just to offer it on that car, but maybe they already bought it on that car, but they didn't buy it on these two other cars that they have. And so, hey, you have a service contract with me? I notice you have these two other vehicles. Would you like to get a service? So it starts entering moments to turn service into sales.
I think the more the better that you can take the information that you're grasping here and pulling through this process, whether it's done in service or sales, but especially in service, and get it in front of the people in the dealership that need to see it so they know what to do with it. Like the better off you are, and I think provides more value for your product.
Absolutely. And that's the goal right now, is that really working with the marketplace to figure out how and where can we best expose it, right? People see the value, the CRMs and the DMS systems, like to expose the level of integration to go ahead and expose and weaponize it in those moments is a big uplift, because they don't have the place to store the information, weaponize it per se. That's what we're working towards. But in the interim, what we're doing is the dashboard. The consumer does all the consumer work. So it's like that's in between. There's no integration to do that. That's you send them a link or a QR code and they're off on their own device. But the dashboard that we shared is the launch pad for all of those. So when the results come back until the DMSs and CRMs, that dashboard is a place that they could sit in, and when the results come in into that queue, they could go ahead and click. And I've been trying to come up with some funny names for internally for for these things for them. But ultimately, how do you take that insights and turn it to action? So now we're exposing the insights. The next evolution of that is action. So how do we weaponize it? So in the moment when we know what they're doing and we see the data, can we actually tell them? So it's like very prescriptive. Hey, Scott's in for service. A little script could pop up. We'd realize Scott's in for service. We recognize he has these 2 other cars. You should ask him about if he's interested in talking to someone about a service contract, et cetera. And so we're working with
or selling one of those cars or trading one of them in.
Or selling or trading one in, whatever it might be. Here are some next best actions you might take. Introduce them to someone inside, or while they're sitting in the waiting room, someone can approach them and have a conversation. There's a
lot of different possibilities where this data could go, especially for marketing purposes. Like if you had integration with an outsell, or there's a lot. I'm just thinking of some of these other vendors that would value having some of this data. There's a lot of possibilities. So let me ask you a couple questions. Number one, what kind of feedback are you getting from dealers that are using this so far? Good and bad, right?
Yeah.
I want to hear the real story.
Yeah. So on the good side, we're getting lots of good feedback from the dealers in terms of the process. Super simple and easy for the customers to use. I mean, you hit on some of the stuff around some of the username and login stuff. We've done a lot of advancements to help really improve that process. As you saw, those buttons, they weren't there the last time either. To reset and so we're taking that feedback continually. And I'll just say that the majority of our roadmap right now, besides some of those innovation things, are on, and those things are even derived from the feedback that we're getting from our customers. So on the good side, we're hearing, hey, you're listening to us, you're making the enhancements that we're looking for. On the bad side, we don't have enough dealer, DMS integrations and CRM integrations. And so, I think that's one of those things that people want more integrations. They want it to exist where they currently do their work.
Makes sense.
And that's probably one of the big things. We've heard some things around, again, we get pushback just originally based on some of the economics. And so especially for large scales, the numbers just start looking bigger, even though in the smaller dealerships, they're not pushing back on the price, because the numbers are small at a small scale. On a big scale, they become big. And so, making commitments, which could help us drive down the economics, is not something that they're ready to do, because this is new in the space. And so because it's a newer thing, they fear, or their general disposition is to not make those commitments. So that's what's driving the additional value equation. So I keep these things are very closely related. The negatives are driving our behavior and what we're doing to overcome, whether it's the objections or the friction that we're from the dealers.
So what are you charging for this? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, look, list price on this is not published anywhere, but there are packages that.
What did you say? It got cut off. How much?
No, I didn't say the amount. There are different packages that work on a per pull, per transaction basis, and then there are per rooftop packages as well. And so
give me some examples if you don't mind. Give me a rough idea for me and for the audience.
Yeah. So at a high level, basically pricing starts at $2.25 per pull, and then at scale comes down. And could go. I really don't want to drive to what the bottom price, because it really depends on the situation and the use case. But ultimately, with commitments and with scale, the price can come significantly down from there. And that's kind of generically. And then when you layer on the ID verification and whatnot, there's an additional charge for the ID verification.
So I would think it could get expensive, but you could probably offset it in a way, especially with rental cars, just by charging for it.
Yeah. So and that's why what I was getting at is, so there are different scenarios where things are offset, and we're working through those models in the industry where the driver's insights and the data and whatever else. So how it gets categorized and ultimately recognized and presented to the dealers is something that we are working through. Is there value in the data? And do we say, hey, you want the driver insights? Well, the verification cost X and the plus the insights cost Y. You don't get that if whatever I can
Yeah.
lower the price, but you don't get some, and I don't want to go that way. I'd rather sit there and say, hey, this is my price and I'm working to justify, the value in the cases where it isn't. But I'll tell you, in many places, we're not seeing tremendous pushback. It's just at scale, they view the number as getting large. And so our counter is make commitments with us, partner with us, and then we can go ahead and we can work that through. But everyone wants, they want the pricing for scale without making the commitments of today. And so we're continuing to struggle with that because
car dealers, what do you expect?
I know, but like we scale just like them. We scale.
I'd be asking the same thing.
Yeah, when we scale when they scale, right? And so I'm able to offer it to them because my costs go down as their usage goes up. So,
well, the way I look at this, right, if depending on where you're located and how big your rental fleet is, especially like this is a huge liability, I think, for really you're renting a lot more cars each day if you've got a big operation and fixed than you probably are with test drives, right? I would think. I think, and there's a lot of liability when it comes to renting a car to somebody. There just is.
yeah,
Whether it's a loaner or not, it doesn't make any difference, right? There's a lot of liability there. And the same with test drives too, depending on the kind of market that you're in.
right.
And it just when you're selling a person a car, the time that you save. So I could see how you could, you can justify the cost.
Yeah,
I definitely could, even if it
yeah.
gets a little bit pricey.
The last time we talked, the price was significantly higher. We've brought the price way down. We're seeing adoption in the marketplace by it. We do believe that there's acceleration in the market by being able to continue to drive that down. But I'd rather not drive price down. I'd rather add more value, right?
Mhm.
Because a price issue, is fighting price. Everyone, no matter what the price is, and we've just seen it, whatever price the price is, ultimately someone's going to sit there and say that's the basis, and therefore their first inclination is it should be lower. No matter what price you sell me when you offer me a car, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to negotiate lower. And if I tell you, come to me with the best price, let's just skip all the hoopla, never do you do that. You always come back with a price. And so, it's one of those things that like that's not our first inclination, is to go and lower the price. Obviously, we want to work with our customers to make sure that the value exchange is fair and equitable, and that for the use case and their dealership, that we have a fair exchange. And so what I'll tell you is, for anyone out there, that regardless if you agree or disagree with what list price is, talk to us. Like, let's understand your use case, because in the sales process in F&I, what is it worth to save someone 30 minutes of pain sitting and waiting during the F&I process, or when they come into the last thing they got to do is just sign their paper, and now they don't have to wait for you to verify insurance? What is it worth to not have your title and registration person get a kickback from the titling software because the insurance had lapsed, or was canceled? What does it mean for your insurance equation? What does it mean to get this data that we're going to provide and weaponize for you? What is it? Let's talk about those things. Someone might say, I don't care about the data. Well, okay, fine. Well, I can take away the data, and maybe then the price can come down if I take away the data, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of ways to skin the cat to right size it. But, we've got to start somewhere. And, it's like in a dealer. You don't just start discounting for no reason. Hey, maybe a lower trim package might fit your budget better.
Do you have clients outside of auto, like power sports, motorcycles, boats? Are you in any of those kind of industries, or strictly car dealerships for this?
Well, so it's not strictly car dealerships. But what I will say is, we have a whole business in property. So when you rent an apartment, we do the exact same thing for renters insurance, because landlords and property managers have to have the same issue.
And that's a separate business.
It is a separate line of business because the insurance is property. But in automotive, there are other places that this is starting to experience. So think about, we do a lot in the buy here, pay here segment. So they are, independent dealerships, and then they monitor because they're their own lender. And
Yeah,
so
they
that's
need to monitor.
right. So that's bringing us into auto finance and auto loan servicing. So we have that, and then we do have, I'll say in our pipeline, not in our existing customers, we have things like RV and other types of deals where
Gotcha.
we're starting to get into, motorcycles, things like that. But right now,
Gotcha.
predominantly is, things you would buy from a traditional, it's got four wheels ish,
Yeah, for sure. So one more question before we finish up here. For the investor community out there, right? Like the Steve Greenfields of the world and people like that. Are you out looking to raise money? Have you done anything like that? Or is that not something that you need to do right now? Or like just fill me in on that.
Yeah. So at the moment, I mean, I think it's, out in the public. We did an initial, seed round capital. We're pre-series A, from a company. We're completely privately held. And at the moment, we're not out publicly seeking additional capital. But that's not to say in the future that we're not open to it. If there's folks that are interested in talking to us about strategic investments or opportunities, I'd say we're always open to interesting conversations about interesting things. So, feel free to reach out. But at the moment, we're not running an active process.
Gotcha. So if you could one of you or both of you put your contact information up on the screen for viewers to see it? Or if not, we can just, I think there's a way that you can type comments on the screen down below here.
I'm not
'Cause
sure.
I just want to get that up for people in case they want to reach out to you after they see this.
Scott, you go ahead.
Yeah, I'm only seeing viewer comments.
To the right of it is comments, Scott.
No, that would be
Oh,
the viewer comments.
maybe we can, when you post it out live. I mean, I'll just share. Maybe we'll just give a quick plug verbally for the time being.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you do that if that's okay?
Yeah. So Justin Silver. By the way, my contact information is on our website at www.modives.com. My direct email is jsilver, like the metal, at motives.com. And my cell phone number can always be reached the best way, day or night. You can even text me, is 908-406-0445. Scott?
The best way for me is obviously call or text. I'm like Justin, available all the time. It's 941-713-4976. So
Excellent.
call anytime.
So is there any question or comment that you want to bring up that I did not ask or mention before we finish up here? I think it's a pretty good it's a pretty good demo, to be honest with you. It's a good product. I like it. I think there's definitely a need for it 100% in the dealership. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we have in flight a number of DMS, over 8 DMS integrations. So stay tuned, industry for those. And if you've got a CRM or a DMS or a system that's somehow tied into the automotive process where insurance verification is happening while people are in that system, outside that system, or there's places in that system where you're capturing insurance information that's tied to a process, reach out. We'd love to talk. We'd love to hook up. We'd love to integrate you to us to you. We've got we didn't mention it before, but we've got what's called the Check My API, which on our website is also there on our integrations page. And a big piece, I don't know, I think I've mentioned this before and folks are like, I don't know what that means, but I'll tell you what it means. I'll define it. But we just received our SOC 2 Type 2 certification. And for those that don't know what that means and why you should care.
Including me. I don't know what the hell that means.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you. It's basically why you should care is all the data that moves through in and out of our system between DMSs and CRMs and us and all the way back between the customer and us is digitally safe and secure, encrypted with the highest levels of security, all the way through front to back, from beginning to end, which meets the FTC safeguards requirements. And so you can, from your insurance process, completely eliminate all risk and exposure associated with insurance verification by utilizing our system. And that certification is the stamp that companies should look for in a vendor to make sure that they are taking security seriously, and a third party has gone through the process. It's a long process. It's super detailed to go through this process, but you should care. We care about your data and your customers' data. So should you, and therefore you should expect that.
I would care. I would care. I want to make sure that my insurance provider knows it too. Whoever's got my garage liability needs to know. 100%.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to be at NADA or no?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be at NADA,
Okay.
yes.
Are we boothing it or no booth?
We are still working through at this moment. We're not having a booth, but we are planning some cool event things, and actually teaming with our partners. And so that's one of the decisions behind it. I'd be curious to get anyone's thoughts or feedback on it. But at the stage where we're at and what we're doing, we have partners that are there, and we want to give them love and help support them in their evangelical efforts. And so our goal is to spend time with our various partners, helping them, talk about insurance verification.
Cool. Beautiful. Well, it's great talking to you guys. I appreciate your time today. I hope for the audience, this was helpful for them as well. I know this was, I learned something today, that's for sure. I think this is a valuable product, and I would love to, again, do a check-in in the future to see, how you guys are progressing with this product, because I think there's definitely a need for it, for sure.
Love your comments.
Thanks
love
a
your
lot.
perspective. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, you guys.